Welcome students. Today we would be discussing decentralization and delegation. Now, before talking about decentralization or delegation, let us know what exactly authority is. Authority in terms of in the corporate scenario. So, since authority is the crux in distribution of authority, it would be necessary to understand what the authority is, right? Authority is the right to do something. Authority is the power legitimized by organization which empowers a manager to make decisions, to use organizational resources, and to monitor and regulate the behavior of subordinates for the efficient performance of assigned work responsibilities. Authority, that is right to do something, is different from the power. Power is the ability to do something, and authority is the right to do something. Here we are talking about authority. Now, authority is positional, but power may not be positional. Authority has the legal power, but power is because of personal influence and resourcefulness. Authority always moves downwards, but power can move in any direction. Authority can be delegated, but power cannot be delegated. Authority commands fear, but power commands respect. So, this is a distinction between power and authority. Now, what are the characteristics of authority? It is the right given to the managers, right, from the rules and procedures and regulations. Now, the right is vested in position, and the manager gets it when he occupies the position. So, whosoever would be in position would have the right to do all those things. Now, authority originates at the top and moves downwards. So, authority is the flow is always from top to bottom. Authority can be delegated by a superior to his subordinates. Authority creates superior subordinate relationship. Manager exercises authority to influence subordinates' behavior so as to get the things done. Right, so these are all the characteristics of authority. Now, types of authority. As we have discussed already, according to the organizational structure, line structure, staff structure, or functional way, so that can be a kind of authority. So, line authority contributes directly to attain the goals of an organization. Staff authority does not perform part of the chain of command and is advisory in nature. Functional authority is the right to give orders within the specific task area and is operational only for designated amount of time. The next is shared authority and wholesome authority. Now, what is shared authority? When authority is delegated to two or more people to solve a common problem. It is called shared authority. Whereas wholesome authority means giving authority to one person only to solve the problem. So, shared authority, that there are few people who would be solving certain problem, and hence they all are authorized to do that. Whereas wholesome means it is vested in one person. General and specific authority. When you are given generally an authority over everybody, then it is a general one. Whereas if it is given for specific task, let us say you are a project leader for this project only, so that is the specific authority. So when the authorities perform all the functions in the department or division subject to overall guidance and control of the superior, like chief marketing officer in the marketing department, it is known as general authority. Whereas for some specific project, it would be specific authority. Formal and informal. Now, when it is assumed through the formal delegation, it would be formal, and when it is it is just granted for some to get certain tasks quickly, then it is informal. Like when the authority is delegated according to organizational structure, it is formal. A salesman being granted authority to give cash discount of 5% on sales by the sales manager is a formal authority. Informal authority is given to short circuit the formal procedure to perform the task quickly. Now, informal authority is that, okay, if you are thinking that the customer will give in, then you can extend 1% more credit, but this is, it is a kind of informal authority. Charismatic authority and positional authority. What is charismatic authority? The authority that comes from a person's personality, and positional authority that comes because of the position. So when the right and power comes through the charm and influence of one's personality, like Narendra Modi, Mahatma Gandhi, Napoleon Bonaparte, etc., it is known as charismatic authority. But when the authority is acquired because one is appointed as a manager or because of its position, so Narendra Modi as a Prime Minister of India, so that is the positional authority. And Narendra Modi, because of his charisma, is a good leader, is a charismatic authority. Written and oral authority. Now, when the authority is granted in writing, it may be called legal or written authority. Generally, all the formal authorities are written authorities. And then oral authority is known as traditional authority, guided by traditions and customs, and may not necessarily be written. Then downward and sideward authority. When the authority is granted to immediate subordinate, it is referred to as downward delegation. And if it is given to another official of the same rank, it is known as sidewalk authority or delegation. Something like if one of you becomes the class representative, so it is kind of sideward authority. But if you are the president of the students union, being the final year students, and you have one first year and second year under you, then it is a downward authority. Concept of delegation of authority. Now, what is delegation? Delegation is the process by which a manager assigns or entrusts a part of his workload to his subordinates. Now, what happens? A manager in an organization cannot do everything himself, right? And cannot accomplish all the goals on his own. So he requires or he assigns some part of his work to his subordinates and give them necessary authority also for that. Now, this process of granting authority to the subordinates and exacting responsibility from them is known as delegation of authority. So, it is going to be a process which a manager is going to follow to divide the work assigned to him first, and then he performs that part because of his unique organizational authority or the placement, so that he can help others. He can get the help actually to get his things done. Now, in practice, the term delegation is in use for different activities. It is a programming technique, a TV quiz show, a term in contract law, a name of British funk music band, and a second level administrative subdivision of a country, delegation of Tunisia. So, there are different terminologies attached to it, but for us in a corporate, delegation is something that is being extended or giving another person responsibility to carry out the performance agreed. So this is delegation for us. Now, what are the process or elements or steps of delegation? So generally it involves 3 steps. Apart from sizing up of workload by the manager to decide what is assigned to the subordinates. The first one is that the manager assigns the responsibility or work to the subordinate to do. So first is the assignment of duties. So a manager assigns duties or tasks to his subordinates, and the duties or functions to be performed by subordinate must be defined in a clear and precise terms. The results or targets which the subordinates are expected to achieve should also be very specified. Now, expression of duties in terms of functions or targets, they're going to enable the subordinates to know by what standards their performance will be evaluated. Now, the second is to complete this assignment, he grants necessary authority. So, granting of authority is the second step. like to spend money to get information from confidential files, to use companies' resources, to liaise with outsiders, to direct others. So, adequate authority is delegated to subordinates in order to enable them to perform their assigned duties. So subordinates are given the right to use resources, maybe raw materials, maybe money, or to hire and fire people, or to represent their superiors. So all these things can come under granting of authority. Then the last one is creation of an obligation. Like, accountability of subordinate is created towards the manager. So it is a creation of an he's obliged to the manager. Accountability is an obligation of subordinate to manager for the use of authority in performance of his assigned work. So in this third stage, it is necessarily exaction of responsibility from the subordinates for accomplishing the assigned task. Once a person accepts a duty and is the authority, he becomes responsible also for that, that he does the a satisfactory performance of his duties. So the subordinate must be held accountable for the proper exercise of authority delegated to him and for the results. So this is essentially 3-step process of delegation of authority. Now, characteristics of delegation of authority. So it involves transfer, not surrendering. So the manager's responsibility will not end, but he is only extending it or transferring it to somebody, right? To his subordinates and all. Now it is a process of sharing work, granting authority, and creating accountability. It is, so manager is sharing his work. This is like the steps of delegation: granting authority and creating accountability. Then next is delegation takes place at all the levels where superior subordination relationship exists. So superior and subordinate will, obviously there would be a delegation of authority, because superior wants to get the things done from the subordinate, and subordinate cannot work if he does not have the required authority. And once this authority is there, he is responsible to the superior, and hence delegation at all levels takes place under superior subordinate relationships. Now, delegation is possible only when the delegator has the authority. Of course, what you do not have, you cannot give, right? So once you have the authority, then only you can delegate it. So no delegate is permitted to delegate the granted authorities further. So it is not that okay, I have got this work, so why don't you do this work for me? So you further delegated it. No. In a corporate scenario, whatever is delegated to you, you have to you have to abide by that, and you cannot delegate it further. A manager never gets total authority delegated, otherwise he won't be a manager anymore. Like he cannot surrender his authority, he can only extend his authority to his subordinate. Now, delegation is not abdication. Ultimately, the responsibility for proper discharge of authority and completion of tasks remains with the manager or the delegator. So delegation does not mean that manager can be exempt from its responsibility. No, it's manager's responsibility ultimately. He is only delegating some part of it to the other subordinate, and if there is any problem, subordinate submits, or some wrong report or something, then it is the manager who is responsible. Manager cannot come out clean saying that it was subordinate's problem or he didn't do it well, that is why it is so. So delegation is not at all abdication in any sense. Now, authority once delegated can be withdrawn or revoked by the delegator. So who has given can always take it back. So authority once delegated can be withdrawn at any time, or the way it should be, or revoked by the delegator. So these are the features or characteristics of delegation. Need and importance. Why do you need to extend the responsibility, right? For higher efficiency. Like I've told you, every person cannot do everything himself. So that is why he needs people to do it, right? So, and then of course, why would he delegate? Because he wants to have a higher efficiency. So, a superior being able to concentrate on non routine jobs delegated to subordinates and multi policies his efficiency. So, because he's not now the routine jobs are seen by the subordinates, and hence he can concentrate on the other things, and his efficiency increases. Motivation. Since delegation indicates confidence of manager, the subordinate feels self-importance, recognition, etc., and he feels motivated. Once some authority comes to you, you feel, wanted in the firm. You have some control over certain things, and it motivates you. It develops a subordinate, yes. So giving him something, some importance in the organization develops his skills also. So once you've given some responsibility and some authority to that subordinate, he would act responsibly and will learn in that process. So making decisions and solving problems enable them to develop their managerial skills. Now, better distribution of work in the group. So once you've delegated things, it is all distributed. Every employee has got adequate authority over it. So it leads to prompt decision making. Everybody knows what he has to do, right? Foundation of centralization. So now the delegation may be made permanent only if it works well temporarily. So the decentralization is only sort of delegation further. So first you will see that the delegated processes are well, and then it can be adopted in the environment, business environment. So what are the obstacles, barriers, or problems in effective delegation of authority? The obstacles may come from superiors, or from the viewpoint of subordinates, and otherwise from the organization or its structure. Now, problems with superiors. How and why superiors can be a problem in the delegation? The superiors may be reluctant to delegate because one, they themselves are disorganized and they cannot plan what to delegate. Now, their inability to plan timely may affect the delegation. Or if they think that they can do it better themselves, they have more confidence in them, because ultimately it's their responsibility to, to do something, and they do not think that, the subordinate, they do not trust or confident in subordinate that he can perform it well. So this might be one of the reasons they do not delegate. Or if the subordinate can do it well, then also it becomes a problem, or it threatens the superior's position, because boss of the superior can see that the subordinates are doing good, and maybe the superior may become redundant. Or there is lack of ability to direct. So you have to have the ability to direct your subordinates, and if you do not have that, you cannot delegate properly, then of course it is a problem. Now, problems with subordinates. Subordinates, they may not accept the responsibility as they should be, because one, they love spoon feeding. So they just need to be told, okay, do this, do that. So they do not want to assume the responsibility. Or habit of over dependence on the superiors. So one, they in spoon feeding, they love what to be told what is to be done. Or they want to ask the boss every time, shall I do this, shall I do that? So in that way the responsibility is not theirs, it's of the boss. Or fear of failure and consequent reprimand or criticism. So they don't want to do it because they are scared that they would not be able to perform well, or they would be reprimanded, or there would be criticism that can happen, which would jeopardize their position in the organization, and hence they may shy away taking the responsibility. absence of reward for accepting additional responsibility. So you have to motivate them to accept the extra work. Otherwise, they feel that they are not rewarded properly, and they would not initiate ever this extra responsibility. Then being already overburdened with their own work. So if they already have so much work with them, why would they like to invite more trouble for them? Because extra authority means extra responsibility, so they may shy away the work only. And lack of commensurate authority required. Now authority is being given, but the kind of authority it is required to perform that function is not being given, so they shy away that who would do that. Every time I'll have to run to the so many people, why should I do that? I am so If, let us say, for example, passing of the bills is with the finance department, so every time I will choose something to buy, I'll have to run to the finance department to get it signed or billed. So I do not have that authority to sign the bill myself and grant it. So half authority is also a problem, that a subordinate can perceive. Then problems with the organization. Now, organizations also impede the delegation of authority. How? So, there is no precedent of delegation so far. Because if there is no precedence that people delegate, everybody does its own work, then obviously, the people will not delegate, because they would not like to start something new altogether. Or if management feels that centralized organization is the best, and their philosophy is only about centralized organization, then of course there would never be a delegation. Or in case of size of the firm, that whenever it is very small, you don't need to delegate, you have people who are taking care of their own work, and things are going smooth, and hence the organization only doesn't want that there should be any delegation of authority. Now, how to make delegation of authority effective? The first is identify the person suitable for the job. Now, he should be capable of creating mutual trust and confidence, right? So, when there is trust and confidence, then only the proper delegation can be effective. Now, explain the job and the objectives clearly. Now, principle of functional definition and principle to limits of authority tells you that you have to have a functional definition of your job, what is to be required, from what is expected out of you, how you would be delivering it, and objectives have to be really clear. Now, there is principle of individual initiative. That is, an individual will only take initiative when there is space for creativity and experimentation. If it is not there, then people would not like to enter in something handcuffed, right? They need some space to work around. Then principle of delegation should be consistent with the results expected, and principle to parity of authority and responsibility. So once you are expecting something from a person, you have to give necessary authority, and the kind of authority which actually facilitates the things and not inhibit them. Then communication training and control is very, very important. One has to keep in touch with the delegate for support and monitoring process. Then acknowledge a job done well. So this is the principle of reward. You will promote the person who is doing a good job, or he's doing the job better than you. Then you have to acknowledge it, you have to reward it. It is not that you can just keep taking the work and do not give something in return, because for adequate motivation you have to acknowledge the efforts. Then the last is this, that those who do, they only commit mistakes, right? So we all are human beings. The one who will do something can only do mistakes. If somebody is not initiating anything, is not doing anything, he would be sort of safe, he would not do anything wrong. So you have to instill that confidence in your subordinates, that it's okay to to make an error, and you have to be in control of the things, that even if the error is there, you can always go back and change it. So that is the kind of confidence the subordinates should have to be encouraged to take the responsibilities. Now, concept of decentralization. What is decentralization? It is a conscious process of systematic distribution of authority by the top management down the line to create operative levels and to make them autonomous in their functioning. Now, it is highly decentralized organization that the top management restricts itself to major decisions in the areas like policy making, coordination, control. So the lower managers have enough decision making authority and support to introduce innovativeness in their work. Now, so as we have just done, so decentralization, what does it imply? It implies consistent and systematic effort to delegate to the lowest levels of all authorities, except that which can only be exercised at central points. So, in a decentralized organizations, authority for making decisions is pushed down as the near point of action as possible. So, a decentralized enterprise is characterized by small and self contained administrative units. All major decisions regarding a division or department are taken by the manager of the department. So, he is also responsible for the profit and loss of his division. So, such decentralization is called profit center decentralization and is useful in multi product organizations. Decentralization, it reflects a philosophy of organization and management, and it requires careful selection of what decisions to push down the organizational hierarchy and what to hold at or near the top. So this is a way in which the authority is passed down. Now, the characteristics of decentralization. A decentralization, it is both a philosophy of management and a technique of organizing. So philosophy in the sense that it prepares inside people for future positions, and it is a technique that it is creating number of centers of initiative, that how many or where would the initiatives be taken and given the authority. Then decentralization of authority is different from dispersal of activities. What is dispersal? Dispersal is like in different geographies as a strategic decision, whereas decentralization is concerned with distribution of authority and not the activities. Activities can be in different areas, but we will see where lies the authority. Then decentralization is extension of delegation. So there may be delegation without decentralization, but no decentralization is possible without delegation. Hence, delegation is a smaller concept where in few activities you can authorize certain people to do certain things. So that is delegation. And when it is done across the organization, then it is decentralization. So degree of decentralization can be measured through number of decisions. More important decisions, the scope of decisions, the lesser the controls on lower level managers. So the decision making would be situated nearer to the point of execution. So now how with the number of decisions the degree of decentralization is measured? In the sense that the greater is the number of decisions made at lower levels, the greater is the degree of decentralization. Through important decisions, that the degree of decentralization is high when more important decisions are made at the lower levels of management. Like for example, if executives at lower level can decide about large capital expenditures, degree of decentralization so is supposed to be very high. Now, about the scope of the decisions and it's like greater the number of functions affected by the decisions made at lower levels, higher is the degree of decentralization. For example, organization which permits financial and personal decision at branch level are more decentralized than those which permit only operational decisions to be taken at the branch level. And then the controls, so lesser the controls on lower level managements, there is higher degree of decentralization. So the decision making would be situated nearer to the execution, as I have told you already. Then decentralization is just the opposite to centralization. But centralization and decentralizations are mutually dependent in large organizations. Why are we saying so? Is because, see, the centralization is always there. So top management will always have authority. But decentralization actually relieves top management to some extent, that they can take decision in autonomy and they are responsible for those decisions as well. For example, if a division gets a major hit in profits because of some of their strategy, then they are responsible for shutting down or slashing the number of employees in that division. Needs, advantages, or importance of decentralization. Now, why the decentralization is important? It improves decision making at the top level. How it improves decision making at the top level? Because it reduces the burden of top executives. So decentralization is like all the routine work uh, can be delegated, so that the top management can concentrate on more important functions of policy making, coordination, and control. So as a company grows beyond the reach of chief executive, decentralization becomes very, very necessary. By delegating authority for operating decisions, top management can extend its leadership over a giant enterprise. Then it is for the development of managerial personnel through exposure, which provides the opportunities to grow. So it is better for the decentralization provides an opportunity to the subordinate managers to take initiative and acquire leadership qualities. So a reservoir of promotable managers become available, which simplifies management succession and helps to ensure continuity of management. Now, as the success and survival of the organization does not depend upon a few individuals at the top, decentralization makes for stability and continuity of the enterprise. Then it increases the motivation and morale, which is reflected in the performance. So it improves the job satisfaction, motivation, and morale of subordinates. Opportunity to make decisions provides sense of belonging and satisfies the need for power, prestige, status, and independence. Now, high motivation and morale help in improving productivity and working relationships as well. Then, of course, if it is the decisions are taken at the nearest execution site, it would be quicker and better, since the decisions are not to be refreshed. So decentralization actually permits prompt and more accurate decisions. Why? Because decisions are made by those who are fully aware of the realities of the situations, right? Then it creates healthy competition between different autonomous operational levels. So it is it creates that good competition, that they every decision is responsible for their own acts, and hence they would look at the other departments, how are they doing, and they get internal competition, which is a healthy competition, which is good for the organization. Then adaptation to dynamic change is faster in decentralized organization. So because there is better communication, decentralization is going to improve the organizational communication and efficiency, because there are fewer levels of authority, the problems of red tapeism, bureaucratic delays will not happen, and the quick decisions, and growth and diversification is going to take place, in the sense that it facilitates, each product line is going to be treated as a separate division, and it can respond quickly to the changing demands of its specific market. So the self-contained product division enjoys considerable independence, and proper emphasis can be put on each product line under the overall coordination and control of top management, so that there is a dynamic structure in the organization. Problems, drawbacks, or limitations of decentralization. Now, what are the it is decentralization is a mixed blessing, because the main limitations we can put forward are like problem of coordination because of independent work units. So decentralization may create problem in coordination among different units of the enterprise. So semi-autonomous divisions tend to adopt narrow outlook, and sectional interests may overshadow the organizational objectives. Then there may be a loss of control and disintegration of the enterprise due to this. Then increased operating costs due to duplication of management functions in each unit. So decentralization may result in higher administrative expenses, as it requires employment of qualified managers for different divisions. Then many staff functions and facilities will be duplicated. Decentralization units compete for procurement of resources and trained personnel, may not be, and they may not be utilized fully, so it actually increase your overhead costs a lot. Then it may lead to inconsistencies, as uniform policies may not be followed for the same type of work in different decisions. So there can be certain lack of uniformity in the decisions. So decentralized units may not follow uniform policies and procedures. So as a result, inconsistencies may arise in organizational activities. Then introduction in small concerns may not be practicable. So because we are talking about the creation of so many levels, so creation of autonomous decentralized units requires broad product lines, which is not possible in the small firms, and hence it is not practicable. Then during a crisis, decentralization creates its own problems. So in the crisis, what is going to happen? So if a company is subject to, let's say, frequent uncertainties, like increased competition, growing power of trade union, maybe government interventions, or development of computer information systems, rising cost of executives. So any all such things, they have they need to be controlled at the top level, and hence the decentralization creates its own problems otherwise. So managers having worked in centralized systems find uncomfortable to work in a more decentralized form. They are used to of taking major decisions, they are used to of not delegating the important authorities, and hence it becomes a limitation of that manager to be not able to be adjusted into the decentralized format. Now, factors influencing centralization and decentralization. The first is environment. What kind of environment your organization is working in? If it is not that changing or volatile environment, it is a relatively stable environment, then you will see more centralized companies or firms. Whereas when the environment is very complex and uncertain, then we resort to decentralization in the organization. Then the second is capability and experience. Now, if the lower managers are not as capable as the top level managers, they do not have that much experience to work, or delegate the authorities or to assume the responsibilities, then that structure essentially remains a top to bottom structure or a centralized structure. Whereas if the lower level managers are skilled, capable and experienced, they can handle the situations, they can take the decisions in adversities, then of course the top management will have a confidence in them, and the organization would be more decentralized. Then voice in the decisions. Lower management does not want to take decisions when their voice is not heard. If they, if they say something and the top management takes it seriously, then it is a kind of a decentralized organization. Importance of decision. Now, if the significant decisions like strategic decisions or investment decisions are taken by the top management, because these are critical decisions, so then that organization is more centralized. Whereas there are most of the decisions are minor decisions that can be taken. So if there are more of minor decisions, then you can go for decentralized structure. But if the major decisions are related to investment and long term strategies, then of course it is better to have a centralized structure. Crisis. So if a company or a firm is facing crisis, then it is difficult for the firm uh, to be able to cope up with the situation, and hence it is suitable that the people who are facing the realities are taking the decisions, right? So in case of if it is a more risky proposition, then centralization is the answer. Whereas if corporate culture is open and there is no crisis situation, then you can have a decentralized structure. Now there are some more factors that influence centralization or decentralizations. So this is like geographical dispersion. Whenever there is not the firm is not spread in so many geographies, then centralization is the answer. But if you have presence in so many geographies and nations, so it is good to have a decentralized structure, so that the local units have the freedom. So like Coke or Pepsi, if you see, they have a presence in more than 200 countries, and every place in every country there is a sort of decentralized or independent units that are working according to the tastes and preferences of those countries. Then size and complexity of the organization. Like we have told, it's smaller the organization, you don't need decentralization, and hence size is a major aspect to have decentralization or centralization. So larger the size, greater the degree of decentralization, or it would be required for you to decentralize, because top management won't be able to take care of the entire thing by themselves. Then management attitude. If the management attitude is conservative, they do not want to delegate authority, they want to keep the major most of the decisions with themselves, then they essentially go for a centralized structure. Whereas if it is a progressive organization, they trust and believe in their employees, they have skilled set of workers, they have efficient workforce, then the top management may opt for decentralizing their organization. Then uniformity of action. So if uniformity of action is required, that everything has to be in a proper way manner, then it is good to have a centralized organization. Whereas there is need of creativity or some ideas, then the decentralization structure is better. So now we come to the difference between delegation and decentralization. As we've seen that delegation and decentralization are very closely related terms, and both refer to the location of authority. But there is a considerable difference between them. So delegation is a process of devolution of the authority, whereas decentralization is its end result. So it is possible that delegation can be done without decentralization, but decentralization cannot be done without delegation. So this is the process. Delegation is the process to decentralization. So the amount of delegation determines the degree of decentralization in an organization. Also, so if we come to the nature part, delegation is individual delegation from one to one, from from superior to subordinate, whereas decentralization is sort of holistic in nature, totalistic. So the top management to the last, from point to point, right? So this is the nature of it. Then we come to the scope. It creates superior subordinate relationship in delegation. So delegation can takes place between a superior and subordinate, and it is a complete process. Whereas a decentralization involves dispersal of authority throughout the organization. So delegation is individualistic while decentralization is organization wide, and it creates operative departments within as in decentralization. So when delegation is carried to the length and breadth of the organization, it results in the decentralized structure. Then compulsion. Delegation is compulsory, whereas decentralization is not compulsory. So delegation is a compulsory technique of management because you cannot work without delegation, whereas decentralization is a philosophy of management which is optional in nature. So an organization can exist without decentralization, but it cannot exist without delegation of authority. Then purpose. So there is multiplication of managerial roles in delegation, that or the multiplication of managerial responsibility. So now if a manager is there, he is responsible for his subordinates 1 2 3 4. So his responsibilities are multiplying. Whereas in case of decentralization, so there is increased subordinate role in the organization. So he is responsible for the task given to him, and so on. Then withdrawal of authority is easy in delegation because it is one to one. Whereas if we think of changing our firm from centralized to decentralized or decentralized to centralized, it becomes difficult. It is a big process. Then suitability. All the organizations, in fact, we cannot have organizations without delegations. But decentralization is only suitable for big organizations, geographically wide organizations. Responsibility cannot be delegated. The manager would ultimately be responsible for his subordinates, for the activities, for the processes, for the tasks. But in this decentralization, responsibility is also delegated. That is also a key feature. That in decentralization, the one who's been given the authority is being asked or is held responsible for that. Then operational autonomy. It does not grant operational autonomy to the subordinates every time. They have to be under their superior for the guidance. whereas operative units are created. So one person would be responsible for that unit, and authority or autonomy is given to him in this. Then importance: delegation does not require decentralization, like I told you, because it is at a lower level or individual level, and hence delegation does not necessarily mean decentralization. But decentralization cannot be sought out without delegation. So it is an important part. Thus, if you've come to know, if, as a conclusion, decentralization is wider in scope and consequences than delegation. So decentralization is not possible without delegation, but delegation is, it can be there without decentralization. So, although they are closely related to delegation of authority, decentralization is more a philosophy of the organization, and it implies selective dispersal and concentration of authority. So, it requires far more than simply handing over authority to subordinates in decentralization. Or we can say that decentralization is only an extension of delegation. To the extent authority is not delegated, it is centralized. So now I hope that you understand the difference between delegation and decentralization. Thank you so much for listening.